Hey guys, welcome back to the Franchise Tag Podcast Season 2, Episode 19, coming back at you, letting you know that we are now available wherever you get your podcasts. So whether that be Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Amazon Music, we're there.
Or that's the end of the list.
Yeah.
We'll get more places next year. Right?
If you're not using one of those three, please let us know why in the comments. Now, it's over. The regular season's done. It feels like it was a couple weeks back that we were like hyped for the regular season, getting excited for Chiefs Ravens week 1. Like it's gone way too fast, man. And as always, even though the season is over, we'll still go through our typical everyday rundown. We're going to get you the game by game recap, go a little bit faster through that because there were a lot of games that just don't matter that much. And then we'll go through Black Monday and a little bit into Tuesday, a little bit into today when we're recording, of all of the coaches that have been let go, coordinators, head coaches, a GM even. And then we're going to go ahead and get into our playoff bracket creation. And those are going to be for the full run through the playoffs. I'm out of focus. What are we doing here?
You turned to burp and it just lost its mind.
There we go. I'm back. Howdy. Yeah, playoff brackets. That's happening. This is a disaster already, and this is the first of 3 videos we're recording today.
Great.
So, after the playoff brackets, we're going to just... we'll probably go into the full PickEms recap for the season before we get into the playoffs, and then after that, we'll finish off stocks and everything, or maybe we'll do stocks before the playoff bracket. I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll play it by ear. But would you like to talk about any of the games that happened on Saturday and Sunday? Because we had no Thursday night games.
Yeah. Starting off Saturday, it kind of was a bummer. It was a good little bit of games, but they were like, oh, these are important-ish games, but not really. It was just some slight seeding that could have changed there. But, as a whole, good games on Saturday, the day of the AFC North. I feel like the Steelers are kind of losing some steam, and we won't get too much speculative about how they'll do in playoffs, but they certainly have not looked as good as they did after the first few weeks of Russ. And, the Bengals going ahead and getting that win, while it was monumentous at the moment, didn't really pan out that well for them, what they needed to happen on Sunday. So if you want to move into Sunday, we could talk about that as well.
Yeah, so my Patriots, obviously, I was hoping for a loss, get the first overall pick. That just makes everything easier. We can trade it back. We can take Travis Hunter. We can do whatever we want with it if it's the first overall pick. Unfortunately, we beat the Bills backups. And as much as I have a bit of like the spot in my heart that's like I wanted to lose, I wanted that first overall pick, I will never blame any party for the win. Because the people that want to lose are the GMs and the owners and everybody that doesn't have a direct impact on game day, and the people that want to win every single game and don't really care about draft position that much are the players and the coaches. So if the players go out and play well and the coaches go out and coach well, there's nothing to be mad at. There's nobody to blame because that's their job. That's what they're paid to do, and that's what they're expected to do, even if you want to lose a game. And so Joe Milton went and balled his ass off. It was against the Bills backups, but he balled out and he got us that win, and I'm happy for it. If it means that he's going to be a capable backup for us, absolutely cool with that. If it means that some team wants to throw us a mid to late day 2 pick for him because they just are praying he'll pan out, then yeah, hey, it is old news that he has every single talent in the book. It is just about putting it together. And if you think you can get somebody that's capable of putting it together, then hey, all power to you.
With these games that are very much like, oh, it doesn't matter. We'll go ahead and say Carolina, overtime game, great game to watch. Carolina at Atlanta. Atlanta needed to win that. Carolina had no reason to be playing as hard outside of the fact that the players want to put good stuff on tape. Players want to hit incentives, and players also want to win because it feels good to win. And touching on the Carolina game, that was one of my favorites of the early slate. The afternoon slate, we both kind of agree, was a bore. We'll put it nicely with that. But Carolina, Atlanta went to overtime. It was a big, important game that, it was simultaneous. So like Atlanta could see Bucks were winning, and then the Bucks extended a lead. So the hopes were a little dashed. But the Falcons passed for more yards than Carolina did. They rushed for more yards than Carolina did. It's just when the moment needed it, Bryce Young was balling, and I'm glad to see, especially with the turmoil of the season, him turn out okay at the end of it. You have any other games you want to touch on?
Well, on that one too, I think it was really nice to hear Canales say, "We've got our guy," because that was kind of something he was avoiding all year. Even when Bryce came back and was doing well, anytime he had a good performance, it was kind of an avoidance of like, "Well, we'll see what happens next week," or "Well, we'll see what happens going into the week." And it's nice to kind of see him come around to like, okay, this is sustainable. This is something that is good performance, good player, and the team rallies behind him. So, yeah.
Yeah, and then as I quickly touched on with that Bucks matchup, with the fact that, simultaneously was playing, they needed to win to seal the deal. They did, and they went ahead and gave Mike Evans a nice little record. So you love to see that.
It wasn't.
The
It
love
was.
for a longtime player.
It was the record, but it was also a $3 million contract incentive if
Yeah.
he hit 1,000 yards. So that one play got him in the record books, which I mean he already was for consecutive seasons to start a career. But it cemented him in the record books even further and got him $3 million for a 9-yard catch. And if I was on the Saints, I would put 4 guys on him. Like I'd have 2 pressing him. I'd have one kind of like 5 yards back, and then one a couple yards behind that. And I would just not like I would leave players open because they don't care about scoring a touchdown. They've won the game. They don't care about getting another 70 yards and a touchdown. So yeah, McMillan, go run wild, right? Like Bucky Irving, nobody's covering you. No pass rush. It doesn't matter. Just put every single person on Mike Evans because that's where they're going.
If it was if Saquon played, right, I could imagine the Giants playing that mentality against Saquon, because that's something that's more like gonna be talked about. Like, don't set the record on us. This is like a more niche record. I'm all right with it getting
yeah.
We'll say.
I just think
running a realistic defense.
I think it's great that it happened, and I'm very happy for Mike Evans. I just think divisional rival, like the rivalry there, and it's just kind of something that I, as a person in that rivalry, would be like, yeah, we're not letting you do that. Like we're not just gonna run soft man against you and let him get 10 yards, which is what they did. So, but yeah, the first round of the playoffs, not to kind of get too ahead of ourselves here, but we're going to see Mike Evans and Marshawn Lattimore go against each other one last time.
You intro us on the...
It's your team. I'll let you go into it.
All right. Starting the beginning of the end of the regular season, we have the Sunday night football game, the last one for number 1, as I saw it plastered on some of the promo for it. This game at halftime was very up in the air. It was very scary to watch. It was 6-10, so very small point differential. And then the way the defense just pressured Sam Darnold into the ground nonstop was like humbling for the Vikings, for where they've been out all year, for the way they've played and how good Sam Darnold's been. That was an insane drop off. And man, that first half, Andrew Van Ginkel, terrifying. He dropped the pick that could have been sixed. He leveled Jahmyr Gibbs, and I thought, oh God, another injury. What is going to befall us now? But, all in all, I think that, the Lions, they held their own at home. But man, that was a very defensive performance to start. And then Jameer Gibbs said, "Nah, f that. I don't want that anymore." He had a great
Yeah.
game.
Yeah, that was like you said, first half was just a very like strategic, slow paced. We're gonna test the waters. We're gonna see what works. We're gonna see what doesn't. Not a lot of stuff is working. Second half was like, okay, Jameer, you're fast. Here you go, and bye
Hmm.
bye. And then it was just over from there. There's it was I picked the Vikings to win just on a whim. I had
Hmm.
no reason to believe in them, but I do think the Lions are the better team, and I also have been peddling the narrative in and out all year long that we would see a regression of Sam Darnold at some point, not
Hmm.
to the point of like him not being a viable option in the long term, but just that hey, he's great, but we're going to see flashes of Jets Sam Darnold because that's still in there. But if
Yeah.
Kevin O'Connell can minimize those flashes of poor play, then you can be completely fine going into next season with him if you have a couple plays a game or a couple games a season where there are flashes of him not being a great quarterback. That's going to happen. You just got to work them out and then be able to survive when they do happen.
Yeah. I'm going to touch on two other things for this game because they just came to mind. One, that we were backed up, shadow of the goalpost, safety, range basically, where you get sacked, you're done for. Jared Goff threw it up for Jamo, and Jamo, I blame Jamo for that. He made no attempt to the ball. He kind of lost it. He slowed down. Um, I saw so much like, why would Jared Goff do that? He's such an idiot. We hate him. And it was like, guys, did you not see the wide receiver just really basically stop his route? Um, so a little bit of defense for Jared Goff there because I saw some heat leveled that way. And then also I was very surprised at the job we did on Justin Jefferson because Justin Jefferson, perennial Lions BTA, like he just beats our ass nonstop, and we actually held him in check. There was apparently they played high school together, him and
Amik, yeah.
Amik. Yeah, so surely I'm sure they both really wanted to succeed in that game, and I guess Amik just. Did you see the quote from Amik after the game? That
Yeah.
was pretty.
So I saw it in the context of stand aside, Gino, your quote of they wrote me off, but I ain't right back. Like there's a new one. There's a new
Mm-hmm.
version of it. And like I was like I read it and I was like, damn, yeah, that's hard as shit. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's yeah, it was for those that don't know, it was you can't bury what comes from the dirt.
Mm-hmm.
And that just like it's kind of in line with that Gino quote where I'm like, if I
Yeah.
start actually dissecting it, like I can kind of be like, what the fuck does that actually mean? But if I don't dissect it, it goes so unbelievably hard. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm just going to choose to leave it in that undissected space of just that's a quote. That's a
That's
caption
awesome.
right
Yeah.
there.
So shout out to Meek for that caption, man.
For
But
sure. I'm going
that
to
was the
bury
end of the
myself
regular
alive and
season.
post pictures on Instagram with that caption.
Um, with that,
Dress
wrapping
up
up
in
the
green,
regular season,
put leaves on my
we
back. Plants come from the dirt. I'm a plant. Can't bury what comes from the dirt.
homie is a root system.
Get it. Close out the season with
I'm
this.
not. I'm not
I'll
going to
shut
try
up.
to segue this again. It's on you.
All right. Getting into Black Monday, the time where coaches are fired, and it wasn't even a huge Monday thing. Like a couple people got fired on Monday, but
Yeah.
Gerard Mayo got fired immediately after the game,
Ridiculous. With
which
like 30
I've
minutes after you finish freaking press conference.
yeah. So I had spoken on it, and I had basically said I don't have a fully formed opinion on whether or not I want to keep him around, but I now do, thankfully. Not that it matters anymore, the decision's been made, but I think getting rid of him was the right choice because even though I wouldn't put the performance of the team on him, it was the way that he, as a coach and a leader, carried himself that I don't think lines up with being a successful coach and leader in the league. I think the players really liked him, and it's sad to see a guy like that go when the players are excited to play for you and excited to be in your circle and have you as their leader. That's cool. But when you're speaking to the media in a way that Gerard was, and I don't know if you ever heard the term walk back Mondays, but it was basically every Monday he would walk back statements that he said after the game. And it was a weekly thing where he would be like, yeah, I didn't actually mean this in that press conference. Yeah, I said this, I shouldn't have said that. Yeah, I said this, I didn't mean that. Yeah, I threw this coordinator under the bus, I shouldn't have done that. And it was just a constant thing that was a problem with him. And I think that Robert Kraft said it best. He was put in an untenable situation. He was not able to win. There was no good way for him to go about it as far as performance in the games. But outside of the games is where you have the ultimate control over the narrative that is pushed. And it is the way you talk to the media, the way you teach your players to talk to the media, and the way that everything, or like the way that your players talk about you. And it just, none of it went the right way. So that, combined with the fact that we have 2 or 3 good candidates that are legitimately interested in being a head coach here in New England. Here, I live in Texas. We have good candidates that are excited to have the opportunity to interview and coach in New England. There was no other option, because Vrabel is just a better Gerard. Like, I think he's the same build. He's just better. He has more experience. He has the charisma and the ability to talk to the press that Gerard just didn't have. And then the other option is Ben freaking Johnson, who I don't think would be taking interviews with a team that he is not interested in coaching for. He has the UNC connection with Drake May. There's further connections. I think one of his former Drake May's coordinator or coach at UNC has some connection to Ben Johnson as well. So there's a legitimate relationship there. And then the biggest thing with Ben Johnson, which we can kind of get into when we're talking about a couple of the other coaches and openings, but it's the options that he has and why some of them are bad versus why the Patriots would be a better option. But I have taken a mighty yap sesh on Gerard Mayo.
Yap sesh. Yes.
I'll let you get into some of the other firings that we saw, some of the head coaches, coordinators.
Yeah. We saw Doug Peterson get fired, and it's kind of expected, just the continued lack of utilization of the talented roster, because it feels like they had some missing pieces his first year. Makes sense. You get some pieces in. You have to rebuild what Urban Meyer took apart. And then, you're into your second year. And we did a whole breakdown on this team, on the way the coaching was. They just weren't utilizing the things that made them successful enough. They were running formations that got them, not many yards a lot of the time. And just different personnel issues and a long laundry list of offensive problems. And then this year, the defensive problems really stood out. So as a whole, you have a good roster. Well, I won't say it's a great roster, but it's a good roster. Winning not very many games because the coaching is the thing holding it back so much. This was a no-brainer to me.
I think, real quick, the bigger shock, and this is not a revelation of a statement, this is nothing world-breaking, but Trent Baalke, the Jags GM, did not get fired, and he has been the most heavily criticized member of that organization, which I think a lot of people think is what's going to exclude high-quality head coaching candidates from wanting to go to Jacksonville and wanting to coach there, is the fact that Baalke's still going to be around, and there's no reason for him to be.
Yeah, it honestly is it's a bad situation now, because they gave long leashes to pretty bad coaching, and now if you go in, the expectation is that you're not going to have a long leash, because this GM is now he's not gone, but he really should be, so he's on the hot seat. And usually regimes want to have a full sweep. It's not like they're going to fire just a GM. It's an anomaly. It only happened this year, and not replace the whole thing. So, kit and caboodle, if you will, pull that one
I
out
will not, but
from.
thank you.
Uh, but yeah, you can talk on the next one. I think we can alternate this pretty well.
Yeah. So similar situation of Gerard Mayo, where he was a players coach, spoke for the players. The players wanted to play for him. Antonio Pierce was another guy that a lot of the players were standing up for. They were advocating for him getting the head coaching job after he was the interim, and he was let go. So that it doesn't seem to be a great formula to have a coach that the players are like, yeah, we want him, rah. At least not when that's the only driving factor in it, you know. But yeah, another season of just not great play from the Raiders, and I feel like he wasn't set up very well. There
Mm-hmm.
was not a lot of talent on that roster. The only talent was Brock Bowers, really, and then Max Crosby, who was hurt this year for part of the year and fine for the rest of it. And then like they had Jacoby Myers do okay, but nothing crazy. Like there was just like too few pieces that were able to make a difference, and no quarterback to make them better. So it was just kind of an impossible situation. But I get it. You want to see what's out there for you. You want to see some of these other head coach candidates and see if you can't get a mind in there that can make a better situation out of the bad pieces you have.
Yeah, the argument could be made for Pierce and for Mayo. Like the rosters won accordingly. Whereas with Doug Peterson, it was a very underachieving consecutive years because it's a roster that is built up and should be better. With Gerard Mayo and Anthony Pierce, it's like okay, well, there's not a good roster here around. Like you need to be coaching stellar in order for these rosters to rack up a lot of wins. It's just kind of, as you said, the mentality, the ownership of the not so. I don't mean ownership in terms of like the owners made the decision. I mean ownership in terms of how they took ownership of the team under their wing and held accountability. And it really just feels like these are roles that they're phasing out because they want to get a new injection of some either state of mind in head coach and being a leader, or in terms of actual like game prowess of like, oh, Ben Johnson cooks up insane crackhead offensive plays, that kind of injection. Then I'll get into Bengals firing the DC, Lou Anarumo, because like 2 seasons ago, maybe even just a season ago, this was a guy who was being heavily praised, heavily talked about having head coaching request interviews, and then everything falls off. Like terrible performances from the defense for the Bengals this year. And I really feel like part of it is the kind of front they had. They lost a lot of talent there, and they didn't find any way to make it up. They didn't scheme anything better. They just kind of were like, oh, we're going to keep doing what we've been doing because that was successful. And then it's not. You have different personnel, you have different players. So a lack of adjustments there takes you from being this like highly sought after, this guy could be a head coach if he wanted to now being on the street, jobless basically. So
Yeah. Just curious about him because I feel like you know a lot more about coaches in general than I do. Do you
mhm.
think that there's a chance that he has another defensive coordinator job or even a head coaching like interview or something? Or does he take a step back like most fired coaches? Like most fired head coaches will take a step back, go to their respective coordinator. So if you're an offensive minded head coach, like who's the fucker from Atlanta that went to Pittsburgh? God, I hate him. I can't think of his name right now.
Oh
Arthur
yeah, yeah,
Smith.
yeah,
There we
yeah.
go.
There you go.
So he was an offensive minded head coach. He's head coach in Atlanta. He gets fired. He goes to be the offensive coordinator of the Steelers. Do you think Anarumo can avoid that and kind of take a step forward or a lateral step? Or do you think it's, you know, go back to being a DB coach or go back to being a linebackers coach?
I think his backing, his history is defensive backs, and I think with the issues being that it was like defensive line oriented, defensive front seven oriented, that he could kind of get a DC job. He could luck into that if there's an opening somewhere and there's not like and he has history with the new coach, like because that's really what the networking of the NFL is when you're hiring, and it's a lot of like, oh, we know each other from the past, we've worked together, kind of getting that job slotted in for him. I don't know his history. I don't know where Lou Anarumo's been, what his connections would link him to, but I could see him being a defensive coordinator underneath an offensive minded head coach that comes in because he has the past repertoire of being good. You would have someone who has a history of performing, leading a successful defense. It just hasn't happened as of late.
Yeah, it looks like he was on the Dolphins in the mid 2010s and then Giants for a year in 2018 as the defensive backs coach, and then just been in the Bengals since then. So I wonder if there's any like Dolphins connections there. I don't know the coaching trees that well from early mid 2010s, but we can get into the Seahawks offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb, who was fired, and that was a little bit more surprising to me. I think that's probably the most surprising fire that I saw. I mean, shocking that Mayo got fired, but not surprising. It was only shocking because of the timeliness in which it happened. But Grubb is a guy who came in for a really incapable offensive coordinator, who I cannot think of the name of. Man, I'm really bad at this. But
yeah, isn't he the one that went to the Bears?
He was the Bears, and then he got fired from the Bears.
Getsy? No. Is it Luke Getsy?
No, it's Shane Waldron. That's who it was. So yeah, he replaced Shane Waldron, and I was pretty involved with the JSN breakout train when it was happening, and there was a lot of route trees that were posted of this was JSN's route tree last year, and it was basically just drag or slant or like short, shallow crosser repeatedly from the same side. There was no creativeness in his route tree. There was nothing downfield. There was nothing creative going on at all. And then this year, Ryan Grubb's got this man running every route in the book. His tree is an actual tree instead of being, a fallen dead one.
The one from Peanuts.
Charlie Brown.
Christmas tree.
Yeah. That's the one I was thinking of, but I wasn't sure if you would resonate with that poll. But anywho, it seemed like he was unlocking the potential of a lot of these players, and he was just kind of held back by the lack of an offensive line in Seattle, which is, I think, why the offense struggled at times, whether it was Geno not being able to get the ball out fast enough or Kenneth Walker being contacted behind the line of scrimmage on most plays. And I just, that's one of the more shocking ones. I think he'll have a decent offer from a team to be an offensive coordinator or at least a high-level offensive assistant, and he'll do just fine.
Yep. Before we move off of the coaches, because we do have one non-coach, I did a little bit of background research because you said Miami early 2010s, and that invoked a thought in me. That's the exact same time that Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson were coaching for the Miami Dolphins. So
what I'm hearing is that the Patriots are going to hire Ben Johnson and get Lou Anarumo as their defensive coordinator, and we're going to be leading the AFC East for the next 20 years. That's what I'm hearing, basically.
I think,
is that right?
I hate to feed into your
verbatim
bias, but I think you're right. I think the dynasty
that's what I heard verbatim.
For the AFC.
So
yeah.
Or on a side
maybe
note,
Aaron Glenn gets hired as a head coach in DC for Lions. You never know which way these things fall. But as I said, coaching, networking, blah 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 blah. They fired GM. How the fuck do you say that name?
I just said it as Carson with a lisp. Rand Carthen.
Carthen.
This poor man, he just got fired. Now he's getting slandered by a YouTube channel with 180 subscribers.
Hey, that's 187. Put some damn respect on those 7.
Apologies to the most recent 7. Shout out to you.
If you're watching and you enjoy, there's a little subscribe button down there. Unless you're listening to audio platforms, in which case, I don't know, man. I think this is odd to me.
Titans GM.
I don't know what to make of this. I don't know what to make of a firing of a GM alone.
I saw a take on this that was just talking about how the Titans are not in a terrible position right now. Obviously, picking first overall in the draft is not a great position, but I feel like the front office and the free agent signings that they have made, while maybe not the right choices, they've been willing to spend and they've been willing to bring in talent, which is something that I feel like a lot of front offices don't really have. And why would you get rid of a front office that's willing to go and make the moves and offer the deals that get people to come to Tennessee? And he was doing everything he could to put a capable team around Will Levis, just for Will Levis to not be able to run a capable team. And I mean, the Snead deal didn't pan out. The Ridley deal wasn't great for everything. And Tony Pollard isn't a great running back, but he was making moves and bringing players in. So I don't see why he was run out of town unless there was
It's
something going on behind the scenes, and that's the only thing I can think of.
it's probably that faith in Will Levis. He drafted Will Levis. He then put a team around Will Levis. Like, he was operating under the assumption that what he saw, what his scouting department came to for Will Levis was, hey, he's going to be a great guy for us. We can put parts around him and he'll be better, and we'll lead into that second year better. But like,
What other options were there? Like, he built up the O-line, he built up the receiving core, and oh well, Will Levis didn't work out. Congrats. You have the first overall pick, you can go try again. Like this, that is the situation to be in, to have the pieces in place and to be able to plug in a quarterback and say, okay, quarterback, you have semi-decent weapons around you, maybe some lacking receivers, like you're lacking a little bit in the receiver room, but ultimately you have decent enough pieces and you have a good offensive line. We've been drafting offensive line for the past couple of years, and why wouldn't you be able to succeed there? So, Will Levis, you can't succeed. All right, next one. Unless he was making it clear to other people in the organization that, hey, we're sticking with Levis and I would like to pick Travis Hunter, Mason Graham, somebody like that. Like, let me swing at a player that's not quarterback, then maybe that's it. But there's just so many questions I have and no answers.
yep. All right.
But anywho,
You run the Pick'ems recap because I don't have it ready.
oh boy. Okay, I do have it pulled up. Let me see if I can get there. So the season of Pick'ems is over, and last week we both went 11-5. We were different on two picks, and I was right on one and wrong on one, and you were right on the obviously right on one and wrong on one as well.
Inverse. Yep.
So you end the season at 177-94 with an 11-7 lock record, and I end the season 185-87 with a 15-3 lock record. Unfortunately, I locked the Packers, who could not hold off the Bears in Week 18, a game that did not matter for the Packers. So, guess I should have known.
Yep. Great year from you. We do have the history here. So it goes you, and then it goes my year this year. Then it goes my year last year with only 2 less wins than I had this season. And then you last season with 166 correct.
Not great.
Yeah, not great. I was worse lock-wise, so say what you will. Second best overall, bottom of the barrel with the locks.
You got to remember last year, the locks, I didn't keep the trend going all year of picking new teams. I stopped after like
fair.
week 10. So
Mm-hmm.
I think my improvement is extremely impressive, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Quite. I think, I was less tapped in, not chronically online as I was before, knowing injuries and stuff like that. But I kind of did this year by the seam of my pants. I was doing picks basically right before doing my locks as we're sitting down recording. So it's a drop off, but it's expected with the drop off in terms of my actual analysis into each individual game. But that's our Pick'ems recap. That's where we ended the year off, and then we can quickly go into our stocks. Great year for stocks for us, and we'll start with you because you only had the one stock writing last week, and you can take away.
I went ahead and held on to my Bucks stock, which was a good choice. They won. they increased a little bit in value for me, so I'm selling an additional $1,200 worth, which would put my bank account at 6,200 to end the season. We do not do stocks in the playoffs, so this is it. This is the finale of stocks for the year. I'll be heading into next season with $6,200 in the bank account. We may revamp stocks a little bit. We may have a couple new twists and turns to the formula and for everything. We're still in the early processes of planning out next season, but there are some cool things in the works. So definitely stick around next season to see how I'm going to spend my $6,200. And I will let you get into the stocks that you kept, and a lot of them went up, except for
Yes.
the Niners.
So I held on to the Niners, thinking maybe they'll just luck into a win, and I won't take as big of a loss on that. And they lost, but very minimal extra loss for me. So
They actually didn't
I'm
lose any
perfectly-
extra value.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was 25 or 0 because I looked at it and I was like, I'm pretty sure it said that, but I'll say it was 25. But okay, I lost nothing by keeping the Niners in, so great idea to keep them in. There's only a chance to go up. With the Bengals, $500 of profit on the Bengals. Very happy with that. Ravens, I come away with some profit there. And then the Panthers, I held on just because I was even. Why sell if I was even? Went ahead and got ahead of it with the win in overtime. So my grand total, my net worth is $5,925. All of that residing now in my bank because we're liquidating. All the assets are liquidating. And if I just go ahead and take that to C, 5,925, then I can. Thanks.
Yep.
So, fully liquidated. I came in this season. I have a little analysis here, a little breakdown. Initially, before we bought any stocks, for any stocks that changed values, we were sitting at 3,100 for myself and 3,200 for yourself. Great showing from season 1, I might add. I didn't even remember that we were up that much.
No, we crushed season 1 for sure.
For sure. Do you want to take any of this?
Yeah, so we have a couple of the rankings here, the numbers here. In mid-season, you were actually pretty handedly beating me because mid-season I was up to having a net worth of $4,400. That was after the moves up to week 8, which was when we removed the upper limit on amount we could purchase, or moved it up to 5, I believe. And then as of 1 month ago, I had pulled ahead semi-substantially. You were, sorry, at mid-season, you were at 5,175 net worth, and I was at 4,400. And then as of a month ago, you were at 5,450, and I was at 5,800. So my moves from the mid-season onward were killer. I was doing great, but to start off, I was really hurting from that Bengals purchase at the start of the year, and it never got better because I was like, the Bengals, they squeaked into the playoffs last year. Surely they'll be great this year, and no, they weren't.
Yeah, I crushed that first half of the season, which our stocks open up in it's not, we don't open it up week 0 because you got to buy some extra after some games actually accrue. So mid-season, that's a great rebound on the we can now buy more stocks and sell stocks. Great rebound, and then all the time between there, you're able to go up 1,400. I'm able to only go up around 300. So yeah, a bit of a fall off there. I think a good part of that was probably sticking too much to my guns, where I had profited a big amount on these teams, and I kind of wanted to keep them, and the profit risk had basically gone in the negative, where if they lose it, they lose a lot more money than they gain from a win. And I think probably managing that a little better next season is definitely something I'll set out to do. But the rally in the past month to kind of get up, close that gap from you, happy with how the season ended, both around the 6,000 mark. Not too big of a disparity on us. We're both performing well, while also I'll say we're not always buying the same teams. We have some crossover, but we do a good job of differentiating. So I'm glad to see the numbers aren't just like, oh, here we were the same, and here we were the same, and here we were the same.
Yeah, I will say we actually did better last season relative to what we started with, because we started with 1,500. We both went over double that, so we we
Yeah.
both ended it with over 3,000. This year I added 3,000, but I was at 3,200, so I didn't quite double. And you were at 3,100, ended just shy of 6,000. So you also added about 3,000 and didn't quite double. So great performances nonetheless. We're both doing really well with the in the money category.
If only I could do this in the real stock market.
If only the real stock market was as predictable as NFL games. If any betting companies want to work with us, we'll consider it. But with that, stocks are closed. We will reopen the stock markets next year after the playoffs and after everything is done for this season. We'll have the values set and we'll start cooking up maybe a couple of twists and turns, like I had said. We'll start thinking of some stuff over the off season, and definitely going to be a segment we want to keep at the forefront for next season.
Mm. Video intros.
Oh, right. It's a segment video. Yeah. All right. 3, 2, 1. The playoffs are upon us, and as such, we will be getting into our personal playoff brackets. They will be displayed round by round right above our heads. And I would like to hear you kick things off. It will be starting off with the AFC side. In the wild card round, we've got the Broncos at the Bills.
Yeah, Broncos at Bills. We've got a very strong showing from the Bills all year long with MVP candidate of Josh Allen. Great interception ratio for him. And it's hard to not pick the number 2 team that was able to knock off the number 1 team during the regular season. The Broncos, we've each had our critiques of the whole Sean Payton offense. And while I do think that the Sean Payton offense will continue this, mild to high level of success it's had, when that crunch time happens, am I going to go Bo Nix is going to lead a game-winning drive, or is it going to be the Bills with Josh Allen? So Bills, easy pick for me here, especially despite the level of defense that, the Bills is kind of petering off with some injuries, and the Broncos has been a steady, maintained success. Pat Surtain holds it down. I'm still going to be going the Bills here. I don't think this upset happens.
No, I don't either. I'm also taking the Bills here. And basically same reason as you. I don't love the Sean Payton offense. I've made that pretty well known over the season. And I think that it does fall off at some point. And, we've seen Bo Nix go deep a couple times, and it's worked out okay. But the Bills are just too high-powered of an offense. The Broncos are not yet ready to compete, I don't think, at that level at least. But then we get into an AFC North matchup, which is really cool. We get the Steelers at the Ravens. And this one, I'm pretty easily taking the Ravens. It's the Mike Tomlin Steelers. They looked really good really early on, and we were like, oh my gosh, are they finally going to separate themselves from this constant 500 battle that they're fighting, where they're just barely winning, no losing seasons. But no, they didn't. They dropped back down to 10-7. So, it's a solid season, but it's right par for the course for Mike Tomlin, where Lamar is having an MVP type season and carrying not carrying the Ravens, but taking the Ravens to where they're at right now. And I don't see him losing this one.
Yeah. And an explosive offense in the Ravens, whereas the Steelers, I feel, have had some issues be brought to the forefront. And it's hard when those issues are exposed late in the year and you're heading into playoffs when it really matters for that stuff to be on tape. So Ravens here as well. And then I head into the final AFC matchup of the wild card round, and we've got the Chargers playing at the Texans, and I've got the Chargers winning this one. I think the Texans are hurting. They've gone through a slew of injuries, and they're just not the same team they were last year with the offensive line shuffling every damn week. It feels like the Chargers, they run a very hardball brand of football, and I think that they are going to win in what could be a tight matchup, what could be a real separating matchup for the Chargers. It's just hard to tell what Texans we're going to get. Regardless of the Texans we get, I think that the Chargers win it.
Yep, we are perfect. Same bracket so far. I've got the Chargers as well. I think that like you said, the Harbaugh brand of football, it's a playoff winning brand. And the Chargers defense is really good. And when the Texans have some question marks on offense, not in firepower, but in consistency, I think the Chargers will take advantage of that. And then, Chargers offense. They're going to pound the rock, and J.K. Dobbins is healthy now, or healthier now. He's playing. So they're getting healthy at the right time, and I think that's a good sign going into the playoffs. And Quentin Johnston just came off a crazy game. I don't know if you realize what his stat line was last game. He had like 10 catches,
I did not.
180 yards, and 2 touchdowns or something like that.
Damn. Jeez.
Yeah, like
Finally
it
a
was crazy.
resurgence for KJ.
Yeah. But we can get on to the NFC side of things where we've got the 7 seed Packers taking on the 2 seed Eagles. And in this one, I'm going to take the home team Eagles. I like the Packers a lot. I think this is a much closer matchup than the 7 versus 2 seed on the other side. But I think Saquon is just so good, and he fits perfectly into that Eagles offense, and they've really turned things on to end the year. A bit of a slow game this past weekend because everybody was sitting, but outside of that, they've been great.
Yep. I'm agreeing with you. I've got the Eagles winning this one. It feels like the Packers, as the season went on, you saw more of Jordan Love kind of being like a little bit of a klutz with the ball. Some riskiness that isn't always necessary, given like score position on the field. And I feel like the Eagles are just like, they are the Ravens of the NFC with like a combo of I would say Jalen Hurts is playing, better than he has been. And we got Saquon as the lead back, and he's gone off. So I've got the Eagles in that one. Then we head to what to me is the hardest to predict matchup. This is the Commanders playing the Bucks in Tampa Bay. I don't know what to make of this because the Bucks have been that up and down team that it feels like sometimes they will be this super, like, just high flying offense. You got Mike Evans out there, and Baker has been dicing up some teams. But then on the same side, you've got Jaden Daniels. You've got this huge, great offense that they've managed to have this season versus seasons past with other teams that they've constructed. I'm going to go with the Commanders in this one because of that pure game-winning ability late in the game that I somehow always put it together. So if it comes down to that and, they have 35 seconds and they need a field goal, they need a touchdown, there's a chance it'll happen. We've seen it happen. So I'm going Commanders in this one. But, man, the Bucks at home in the playoffs, it's hard to bet against.
Yeah, I think this is one of the toughest matchups because we don't know which team we're getting for either side on any given week. It could be the amazing, crushing Buccaneers that we've seen. It could also be the Bucks that can only put up a touchdown and a couple field goals, and that's all they can do. I'm also taking the Commanders. I think it's a little less close than probably you do, but it's because I feel like the Commanders are the same every week, even if they are a little jarring in the fact that they can't turn things on until the second half. But the Bucks are they're a very boom or bust team, whereas the Commanders are just consistently, let me wait. Okay, let's go. And I guess I take consistency over the possible crazy output from the Bucks, but I could definitely see the Bucks taking that one if the right team shows up. And then we get into the 4 and 5 seed, the 5 seed 14-3 Vikings taking on the 4 seed Rams. It's been a great season for the Rams. It's been a great turnaround. It's wonderful, Shout out the Rams. They're not winning this one though. I'm going to go ahead and take the Vikings to beat them in LA. It's an away game, but in LA it's not really an away game. So I think that the better team will play and will prevail here. No real home field advantage for the Rams, unfortunately.
Yeah. The Rams don't have a home field advantage. I can agree with that. The Vikings just lost in the worst way they've lost. And as I kind of said with the Steelers and Tomlin and, putting things on tape, putting on how to beat you on tape, I think the Rams are going to watch this Lions game and try their damnedest to match that exact defensive style. Like, yes, the Lions very much run man heavy, so we were able to confuse them by actually running zone for a damn game. I think the pressure that was put on Sam Darnold is going to be the breaking point in this game. If Sam Darnold has a clean pocket, it's going to be a Vikings win. If he doesn't, it'll be a Rams win. because Stafford is still an elite quarterback. I'm going to take the Rams in this one. If for no other reason, we got to diversify this. We can't pick the same teams the whole way through. We got to have something different. So I'm picking the Rams on this one.
Okay. Now, this is where it's going to get a little funky because these are going to be our divisional predictions, which will be different because you've taken the Rams where I've taken the Vikings. Now, on your board right now, what it does have the Rams playing the Eagles, right? So it's the same.
Yeah, it's just a swap. Same position, same matchup,
Okay.
just different team.
Okay. Well, AFC side is going to be the exact same. You can already see our picks, obviously, above us. You see who we've selected to win, but stay here. Listen to us talk about why. I'll kick off the first matchup of the AFC, which is the Chargers at the Chiefs. As much as I really don't want them to win, I can't bet against the Chiefs come playoff time. I was going to stop at like 4 or 5 reallys, and then I just kept going. I'm sorry. Really, I am sorry. Yeah, take away the rest of that discussion, please.
Yeah, I've got the Chiefs in this one as well. Arrowhead is probably one of the hardest places to play at in the playoffs ever, maybe. And then we've got the Chargers, who they're the Chargers. It's that brand of offense. These are two West Coast style offenses. They're just going to kind of take what they can, get down the field. But in these matchups, the Chiefs have won more often than the Chargers. This is going to be a third matchup between these two teams for the season. I'm going to go with the Chiefs. Then, a very interesting matchup of the Ravens playing the Bills. This one's very tough for me because on one hand, Bills, elite, great. This is going to be the two MVP candidates playing each other before they announce the MVP winner. So we'll see. It's not going to be impacted by the winner of this game, and we'll see if maybe the MVP goes to the loser of the game. But it's very difficult for me to pick one or the other. It's a flip of the coin, in my opinion. It is in Buffalo, and that is an insane, just environment to play in. So I'll be taking the Bills in this one, and that will set up for a very interesting conference championship. But in my heart, I want the Ravens to win this one. And I'll get onto that after you tell your thoughts.
I have the Ravens winning this one, actually.
Right.
I mean, they already played head-to-head. Ravens won that one. So I think that it is smart to pick the Bills because they have the tape. They know how they were beaten before, and maybe they can use that to their advantage. But the Ravens already know what it's like to beat the Bills. And it's not as, Buffalo is an insane place to play at no matter who you are. But I think it's less insane when it's another top team in the AFC who's from the North. So you're not really dealing with a crazy Miami to Kansas City in negative 20-degree weather where it's like you're going from it's like a 90-degree shift from 70 to negative 20. So I don't see it as that crazy for the Ravens, and I think the Bills are great, but it's the Josh Allen show, and he's making the plays. And if the Ravens have already beaten the Josh Allen show once, they can do it again. I'm convinced that it's not a if you have beaten the Bills, you know how to beat the Bills, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that argument. And, I think honestly with it's weeks ahead, right? So we don't know what injuries are going to be happening, but there could be a big injury that happens in the wild card. It could be that, big injuries happen, but the injuries that have been lingering for the Bills continue to linger and they continue to eat away at them and they lose this game. But I'll stick with my guns. You've taken yours. I'll go ahead and I'll intro into the NFC side of the bracket here because it's my team. It's home field advantage for the number 1 seed Lions. I have them winning this game because kind of regardless of the winner of, it would change the matchup with the Bucs or the Washington winning, but uh, playing against Washington when you know, like, okay, there is that little bit of flukiness. They only turn it on late versus the Lions who kind of pedal to the metal. It's the whole game. It's the Dan Campbell way. I think that, the fans are definitely insane at these games. So I've got the Lions winning this one. I don't think a rookie going on the road into Ford Field will outperform the way that the Lions have played at home all year.
Yeah, I agree. Lions over Commanders for sure. Um, I think that the Commanders are giving me very strong Texans last year vibes, where they are overperforming. They are doing very well. They were supposed to be in rebuild, but they hit on their draft pick, and it's looking good for them. So getting anywhere in the playoffs is a huge win for Commanders fans, and to lose to the number one seed, I think, is a very honorable way to go. But this is where we say bye bye to having the same bracket, because you had the Rams winning, which means the Vikings are not part of your bracket anymore. But I have the Vikings at the Eagles, and I'm going to take the Vikings in that one as well. I think we're going to end up getting an NFC Championship rematch of the Week 18 matchup of the Vikings at the Lions, and I I just don't see a way that the Eagles can keep it up. I think they've done great. They've done very well this season. They've outperformed your expectations of them because you're a classic big Eagles hater. You hate them. You hate their guts. You want them to be trash. And they just haven't been. They've been the second best team in the they've been the third best team in the NFC. And for that reason, I think that the Vikings are the better team. And even if they are the 5 seed, they have the better record. And it's just because they're in the same division as the Lions, which sucks. But yeah, I'm taking the Vikings in this one.
Yeah. And now onto my diverged timeline. I've got the Rams playing the Eagles. And, if the Vikings did win, I do see them beating the Eagles. In your matchup, I do see that as a realistic expectation. However, I don't see the Eagles falling apart against, the Rams. I don't know what it is, but the Eagles don't feel like a team that will fall apart versus a Rams. That team that has really made a late season push, really gotten very lucky to be in this position that they are in. Because after all, they did tie the record for division leader. So there's some tiebreakers that happen for them to even be in the playoffs. I don't think that they're going to beat out the 2 seed there. And, I'm looking at my bracket. It's a little dry. I've got the 1 and 2 seed, and I've got the 1 and 2 seed. But, on your side, you've got 1 and 3, and then you've got the 1 and 5 who should be 2, and it's a whole little thing. So,
yeah, I quickly changed the Eagles to being the third best team in the NFC because I don't think they're better than the Vikings. But yeah, because you led into the NFC matchup there in your divisional round, I'm going to steal the lead into the conference championship round in the AFC side of things. I just think that's fair. So now above us, you see our picks for the Super Bowl. I've got the Ravens heading into Arrowhead, and for the first time in what feels like a long time, I will be picking against the Chiefs. I will be taking the Ravens to beat the Chiefs. They have not won in a convincing fashion all year. Sorry. They won a couple times in a convincing fashion all year, and every other win was in a very, very unconvincing fashion. So I think once they get tested with a true dominating team that has already played them and nearly won before, and now that there's more chemistry built between the players on the Ravens, whoever new is added, obviously Derrick Henry took a little bit to get him going. But if he can keep being healthy and if he can keep up what he's doing, I think he can help the Ravens take down the Chiefs and let us have a Super Bowl that doesn't have the Chiefs in it. Please, I beg. And so, yeah, I've got the Ravens there on the AFC side of things.
Yep. Before I touch on what my alternate timeline matchup is, I will say I completely agree with Ravens over the Chiefs on your side of the bracket. That feels the Bills and the Ravens. I think the Ravens have a better chance at beating the Chiefs in this game. And now transitioning to my alternate reality, where the Bills are playing the Chiefs in that conference matchup. The Chiefs are playing at home. When they played in the regular season, it was in the heart of Bills Mafia. They're flipping the tables now, flipping the script and playing on the invert. I have the Chiefs winning this one. It's that home field advantage, and it's the team construction itself. It's you lost to them once, you're gonna fight your hardest for the get back, and you've got all of the healthy pieces that have been gone coming back for the Chiefs, as I've kind of touched on as the year has gone on. They're getting healthier at a perfect time. So I think that the Chiefs are going to get this one and notch their ticket to their third straight Super Bowl. And since I saw the
Yeah,
NFC lead off, I'll
I
let you
will
lead
say,
off. Go ahead.
I was just gonna comment on your AFC Conference Championship matchup. I think your way of picking, top teams that have met in the regular season, typically the results will flip because the team that lost knows what they have to fix, and the team that won has to improve on what they already did, which I think can kind of be difficult. I think if you win a game in the regular season, you're kind of showing your cards and you're saying, this is how I'm going to beat you. And so you don't want to change that to try to be a different team. We saw the Ravens do that last year, and it really didn't pan out well for them when they just weren't running the ball. And that's why they lost in the playoffs last year. So I think that it's a smart thing to do to pick the losing team if it's a close loss. Pick the losing team from the regular season to win in the playoffs, and that's I kind of went against that with the Bills Ravens, but I feel like that's a little different because how you were talking about team construction and the Chiefs being more solidly built than the Bills, completely agree. I just think that the Ravens are also more solidly built than the Bills, so I feel like they have an even just the same amount, same chance as the
Yeah.
as the Chiefs do at beating the Bills. But yeah, I'll lead us into the NFC. Your Lions at home against the Vikings. It's a rematch, and after going on that monologue about how the how the loser of the regular season matchup should win the rematch, not when it's a blowout. So I'm taking the Lions in this one to go to the Super Bowl and have a mirror image of what happened Week 18. I don't think it's a super novel concept to think that the Lions, who just put belt to ass against the Vikings, could do it again in the playoffs when it matters most.
Yep. And my alternate reality, I've got the Eagles playing at the Lions. Eagles are a scarier team in this game than the Vikings are. This worries me. How my bracket has fallen, this worries me. All right, if this happens, I'm worried. I'm concerned. However, I've got the Lions winning it. I think they're too hungry. It's too hungry of a team to fall short again. And this time you're playing in front of the home crowd. You've got so much atmosphere. You made someone jump off sides for the Vikings Week 18. The crowd has an influence.
Did you see
it does.
the Amon-Ra Selly after that?
I did. I did see that.
Oh my God.
Homie did an Irish jig.
Yeah,
he was
he
so
did.
happy about that.
Yeah.
But the crowd plays an influence. I've got the Lions winning this one, which sets up a very interesting Super Bowl. We both have the Lions in it. I will say that this will probably be the closest matchup, out of my bracket for the Lions. And I think out of your bracket for the Lions, who they're playing against. The Eagles Lions is a nightmare matchup. And it's mostly because of our injuries on defense.
Yeah.
But
So do you want to get into your Super Bowl prediction first?
I'll get into my Super. You led off twice in a row. I'll lead off into my Super Bowl, which is the three-peat attempt from the Kansas City Chiefs and the Detroit Lions. Two teams that at that point of the year, who at that point of the year are probably, hopefully, going to be healthier. Possible Aiden Hutchinson. A lot of possibles for the Chiefs. It depends on how they play in the playoffs. Who gets hurt? Additionally, because the Lions are probably going to lose an additional 5 guys in the 2 games leading up to the Super Bowl.
I was going to say everything in this bracket is subject to change after one injury.
Yes. One. That's all it takes. But I've got the Lions winning the Super Bowl because beating a three-peating attempt from the Chiefs, the most hated team in the NFL, feels like a nice poetic story for the Lions to pull out against. When the Lions, they fell apart in the NFC Championship last year. They should have been in this exact game 1 year prior.
Yeah. I have the Lions winning the Super Bowl over the Ravens. I think it's really close though. And the only reason that I think that it will go to the Lions instead of the Ravens is because they'll have Hutch back. If they don't, if his recovery is delayed, if it's literally any other team in the NFC, Ravens win. Because I truly think that the Lions struggle mightily against mobile quarterbacks. It is something that is very well documented that this Lions team cannot beat mobile quarterbacks. It's something that I mean, we talk about it a ton because it, it was first noticed with Justin freaking Fields on the Bears. They had trouble containing him, and we see where he is now, and it's like, okay, so you just cannot beat mobile quarterbacks. And I guess for that reason, the Commanders matchup would scare me a little bit just because of Jaden Daniels. But to me, I think that this means too much for the Lions to, like, it means a lot for the Ravens, but they've been here before many, many times. Like, they've been top of the AFC or, leading the AFC North so many times. They know what they're doing, but it doesn't mean as much. I don't think the players for the Lions, it's not that the players for the Ravens won't care. They will, obviously, any player would, but it's just it's a need. It is it's like air or water. The Lions need this Super Bowl. So they're going to do whatever they can to get it. Again, barring any injuries.
Yeah. Man, those damn pesky injuries.
Yep.
And I touched on your bracket a handful of times. So Ravens probably do beat the Lions here because we run so heavy man that it's easy for the quarterback to be unaccounted for in man coverage. Although I think Aaron Glenn has kind of wisened up to that in the past year. He's certainly played running and rushing quarterbacks better. Spies. Lamar's too fast for a quarterback spy. That's just the truth of the matter. It's too difficult to run that against him. So it'd be more of like, oh, keep him in the pocket. Don't let him run. And then that's what this season has been for Lamar, was saying, look, I can do good when I'm in the pocket. Watch this. So
Yeah.
I hope it goes my bracket's way. I'll say that much.
Yeah, I think I would enjoy a Ravens-Lions Super Bowl so much more because I wouldn't care the outcome. I'd be happy either way because either it cements Lamar as a Hall of Fame quarterback, first ballot Hall of Famer, or it's the fun, loved by all Lions winning a Super Bowl, being the first cat team to win a Super Bowl. Like I'm just happy either way. In your bracket, I'm watching that Super Bowl sweating and hoping the Chiefs don't three-peat. So I would much rather it go my way and end in a Lions victory over the Ravens or a Ravens victory over the Lions, but just somebody that's not the Chiefs, please, for the love of God. But with our brackets cemented, I will say that if you disagree with us, I would like you to go create a bracket. We used the Pro Football Network NFL playoff predictor.
Link in description. We'll put it
link
down
in description
there.
for that.
We'll find it.
I'll throw it in. Yeah, I'll throw it down there. Make your brackets. Send them to us wherever you can on Twitter. Our Twitter is also linked in the description. So send them to us on there, and we'll make a video reacting to playoff brackets after the first week and after everybody's is busted. But we'll see. But with that, I think we can sign off. We don't have a PickEms this week because that was our PickEms, and in future weeks,
Yep.
we'll tie it into the bracket as well. But Mr. FTP Elijah, do you have any words of wisdom for these people to lead or live their lives by?
Go Lions.
Go Lions. Good
Pray
words.
for Hutch's recovery. That's about it for me.
Deuces.
Deuces.